Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, this is a follow-up from the agreement by council in September that they agreed in principle that we continue to negotiate a lease with the Rotary Pathways Trust for the use of the Waipukurau forestry block for development of a bike park. Council asked that the agreement, disagreed with delegating the signing of the agreement to the Chief Executive at the time and asked for that agreement to be brought back to Council for ratification. So the agreement has been worked through with the Trust and staff, and it's brought back for ratification at this meeting.
Right, Councillor Belford.
The one question I had about this is in the cover memo, we're reminded that the cost of establishing this could be $200,000 to $300,000, and then there are provisions then later in the agreement as to at what rate that might need to be borne by us if we change. But it doesn't, the upper limit on our exposure is never mentioned in the letter of agreement that I can tell. So if they spend $400,000 to establish this thing, would we be liable to be repaying it? There's no cap. There's no indication of what the cap would be.
I have only had an indication from them of what they're indicatively likely to spend. I suggested we put a cap on there, and they resisted that quite strongly. My view, though, is that if council, if Central Hawke's Bay at some stage in the future may wish to utilise this block for forestry, then that, for wastewater treatment, sorry, then that would be a conversation, I think, between this council and Central Hawke's Bay as to who met the bill. And so I haven't sort of pursued it in terms of what an upper cap could be, but originally I was sort of, I got the impression that they were spending in the order of $100,000. They've advised me that I'm probably way below reality of what they are likely to spend. So they're obviously very keen to secure that investment, and I don't blame them. I see the biggest risk should Central Hawke's Bay wish to utilise this for wastewater treatment. The biggest risk to them is that this is a really successful facility and well used by the community and others. It will be really difficult to change, I think, in the future. So that's, but happy to talk to them about a cap and fix it at somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000, I would guess, is the indication I've had from them.
As it's written at the moment, am I right that there wouldn't be any limit theoretically to our exposure?
No. And the place to include the cap, should you require that one is 19.6 is where it would go. Yeah.
So if we accept this, you'll it'll be with the proviso that there is a cap agreed.
If you agree,
well, I think a good point's been made.
That's fine. That's relatively easy to go back to them.
Just in light of a follow-up question, really.
I'm sorry. Or that we have a right to agree to signing off on what the spend is going to be on the front end.
Yep. No, that's fine. I am happy to put that to them, and I'm sure that there's some ground there where we can reach agreement.
So, as a follow-up to that, you just made a comment that if it was really successful and we did need it,
that's just going to be a challenge, I can see.
How well articulated has that been to the trust?
Pretty well, yes.
They understand that issue.
Oh, absolutely, yes. They And that is why in this agreement, their original vision was that we would have to find them another facility, and I've steered well away from that because that would be a huge task. And I've said, no, we will meet the reimbursement of cost and assist, but we won't go to the extent of finding another facility for you.
So my other follow-up question is, how important is this to be signed off today? Are they wanting to start over the January sort of thing, or what are we talking here?
They have already got some expertise in to do some preliminary design, and they have a concept plan. I think they're really quite keen to progress that as quickly as they can, but clearly Christmas is coming, and I don't think they just want some certainty going forward. So even if there is a little bit further negotiation, but they've got pretty good certainty, I think they would be pleased with that. But yeah, I can't speak for them.
There could be something in the resolution that talks about our desire to have some surety around what we might have to pay back.
I think you could change the wording in 2 to say subject ratifies subject to agreement on the a cap being included, and that you author. Yeah, so I think that sort of wording could be included.
We've opened up. Sorry, Councillor Dick. I'm going to Councillor Pike.
Yeah.
Yeah, just following up, I think, on what Councillor Balfour was saying, it seems as though it's pretty open-ended. One of the concerns that I have is you've got the forestry. I'm very supportive of the whole idea, but you've got tracks being put through the forestry. 10.9 of the lease agreement says that following any forestry work, understanding, of course, that the forest will have to be milled at some stage, it says any damage to the mountain bike tracks will be at our cost, and that could be quite extensive, I would say, to reinstate tracks after you've gone through and harvested the forest. Is that the point of that 10.9?
It is more the interim work of pruning and thinning, bearing in mind that harvest is highly unlikely to take place before 30th of September 2030, so we would be re-looking at... Oh, absolutely, yes.
So just to follow up to that, would you not consider putting in some requirement that makes them do the design of the tracks, taking into account our future management requirements for the forest, to try and avoid that?
Well, I think that's pretty well set in there, because we've got the opportunity to get them to shut off part or to avoid trees. We certainly have the opportunity to have a lot of input to that design if we believe it's going to do or require the taking out of a lot of trees. We've indicated, a few trees here and there. Look, we're not too bothered. If you want wholesale work that is going to do a lot of damage, we won't be agreeing to that.
Okay, Councillor Scott, I'm
following along a similar concern over the open-ended cap. 2030 is a long way out. Our Rotary clubs come and go, maintenance comes and goes. 2030, those tracks could be totally overgrown, and yet we'd be committed to a windfall. Should we not be considering the state of the tracks at the time we take a handover? If they're maintained and what is there likely to be some depreciation because of lack of maintenance, which could easily happen? In which case, why would we actually be tied to an installation cost that happened 15 years before?
If those tracks are inadequately maintained and the facility is well used, we have the ability to take it over, should we choose.
That's another matter, Mr. Chairman. I'm saying we could actually reach 2030 and the tracks actually not be worth anything like $200,000 or $300,000, and yet we'd be tied to a payout on a figure that was set there. So surely there should be some sort of thing about.
Only for the first 10 years are we required to pay the full amount, and then after that it will reduce 20% a year.
To zero by 2030.
Yeah. Good, yeah.
I'm just knowing our tracks here, they've been required a lot of ongoing maintenance, and, you know, they can deteriorate pretty quickly.
Councillor Dick.
Yeah, Mr Chairman, I believe there should be a cap to limit our exposure. A cap doesn't need to be on what they choose to spend. It should, the cap should be on our liability, and I suggest it be no more than 200,000.
Which is covered to,
Easily write that in clause 19.6.
yeah.
And the other thing,
We've got a recommendation up there we'll consider shortly with that inclusion.
Yeah. The other thing is just a question. If it's agreed that there's a 5-year extension at the end of the initial term, in other words, at 2030, there's no resumption of liability on council's part, is there? Because it would have been extinguished by then.
You're talking another extension beyond 2030?
Yes, which is provided
No,
for.
it's gone, yes.
Right.
Yep.
I think you just need to be clear that that is the case in the legal wording.
I believe that was the way, but yeah, I mean, fair comment.
Councillor
Yep.
Hewitt, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I was sitting a little bit comfortable with that 200 versus 300 as well. So a handful of questions. How comfortable are you that we are protected under the health and safety legislation? Because I know, you know, mountain bike parks and accidents do happen and people go over handlebars and break collarbones. Are we, is our liability protected because you can't sign off health and safety liabilities under the legislation, as I understand?
I believe we're well covered. Yeah, it's a place of recreation for public use, and same as river berm areas and other things, and our legal advice is no, we're not liable for injuries that may occur within those areas.
Okay, so that's under legal advice.
But we do require, and in this agreement, both the trust and ourselves to have public liability insurance.
Okay. The 24 months notice, that I'm questioning that under 19.3 and 19.4. So my question to you, Ian, how likely is it that wastewater consent may be called in before 2030 under any scenarios? Or what are the scenarios?
That we might call it in, so the council calls the consent in, and one possible scenario could be that limits in the catchment change, and we call the consent in and change the limits of around the discharge to meet the limits in stream. What we wouldn't be doing though at that point is demanding or requiring a particular method of treatment or disposal. All we will be doing is setting the limits. It would be up to CHBDC to decide whether any new limits were achievable in stream and whether the only practical option they had would be to dispose of it to land. But we wouldn't be telling them what type of treatment system they would have to install. They would need to prove to us and demonstrate that the system was capable of meeting the limits.
Thank you. So in terms of comfort with the 24 months notice, could that be problematic? Should the district council potentially need this site for discharge to land? I see 12 months is crossed out.
It's something they would have to answer, I guess, but I wouldn't imagine that we would be working through that sort of process and requiring them, for example, to change limits and abandon their current treatment system and move to another one within a period shorter than 24 months, knowing how long it took to get the current system across the line. It's probably several years.
Just a follow-up, that's a very good question, but a follow-up to that. Once we gave notice, that would be sufficient, wouldn't it? That there was an intention there. The chances of getting it over the line in 24 months would be pretty slim, I would think.
I think they would know well in advance of 24 months that they had an issue to deal with.
Councillor Bevan.
Just one question, Mike. Are you, I don't know, we don't know who the trustees of this are, you will. Are you satisfied as to their capacity to raise the $200,000 to $300,000 and actually get this job done? Because it sounds like a lot of money.
It sounds like a lot of money. They are pretty committed. They have raised a lot of money already for their share of the pathways. It's the same organisation that has we have been working with on the development of those pathways downstream from Waipukurau already. And they are in a pretty good shape. My understanding is for joining up those pathways at the junction, well, between Tapaira Road and Mount Herbert Road with a swing bridge that they're proposing. So they're pretty active, and I have every confidence that they will get on and raise the money. If they don't, I can't remember which clause, but I've given them 24 months to get their act together and get on with it. I think it's 5 point somewhere, that if they haven't really made significant progress within 24 months of signing of this agreement, then we can pull the pin. 4.5, yeah.
Final questions. You happy to move? Okay. You had a question, Mr. Moore? An inappropriate comment, probably. Moved. Second. Wish to speak?
Thanks, Mike, for bringing this back to council. We have had a number of questions. This Rotary River Pathway Trust is a group of committed community individuals who've worked incredibly hard. They have proven success with other pathway projects that they have seen completed in the district, and this has been a long-term ambition for them to get this project over the line. So I know that they're going to do it because they've done it, displayed that before. We heard from Tourism Hawke's Bay today that they ultimately see a cycle path going from Havelock all the way down to Central Hawke's Bay. So I'm sure these guys are going to be around a little bit longer with that challenge in front of them. But it gives me great pleasure to see this come to fruition, and another which, well, at this stage it's a not quite a regional park yet, but another Parks Network recreation facility come into fruition in Central Hawke's Bay. So I'd like to congratulate the people involved in it. Thank you.
Are we putting a figure of 200,000 in there?
No.
No? Why do we leave that open?
Subject to inclusion of a cap. We haven't set a cap.
Well, I'm happy that the figure 200,000 goes in there.
So mover and seconder?
Yep.
So you wish to have subject to inclusion of a cap of 200,000?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That wasn't, you weren't very clear in your moving of it, but that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Seconder.
Mr. Chairman, I'm really pleased to see this come forward, and I'd like to endorse the comments that Councillor Hewitt has made about it. And just the other day on the Cycle Governance Group, we did get a notice from the New Zealand Cycle Trails that they have approved the Central Hawke's Bay Rotary River Pathway into the family as a Heartland ride, and that they would favour a further application to include the route from Hastings to Waipawa as part of that Heartland ride. So it's really good to see not only the extension of that, but bringing Central Hawke's Bay in it, and this I know will mean a lot to them, and will mean a lot to them in the fundraising, and it just helps them also being able to add those add-ons such as this bike park to increase that as a choice for the biking fraternity to find things and places to go in Hawke's Bay. So I'm delighted that this is going ahead, and I think that we've got sufficient safeguards through that agreement to see that we've got a real partnership there, and all the best to them. I really look forward. I'm not going to bike it. I have no intention of springing an AC joint, going downhill head over heels, but I like to see it well used.
You might walk it.
as long as no one hits me on the
Thank
bike.
you. Mr Moy, are you good now? Okay. Other speakers? So just so we're clear, there's the recommendation up there. Subject to inclusion of a $200,000 cap on the amount HBRC will compensate the trust for in clause 19.6. Everyone's clear on that? You wish to sum up? Fine. I'll put the motion and all those in favour please say aye. Contrary no, carried. Thank you.